People often ask me, which letter kept me up for 3 nights straight? My answer is always the same. A man named Ethan Rhodes. He didn't want trouble. He just wanted a warm meal and a place to sleep. So he agreed to take the night shift at an old roadside stop. Nothing more than a temporary job. 1 mattress, 1 flashlight, and a promise no one would bother him. But on the 10th night, while drifting off on a fold-out cot in the back room, he felt something cold slide beneath his back. When he sat up, he saw a man kneeling in front of him, holding a child. The child's body was blackened, burned, eyes wide open. Its mouth whispered in a voice no longer human. We can't leave, because no one remembers we ever existed. So if you ever stop near exit, don't stay overnight. Don't go past the gate after 10 p.m. Because not everyone who leaves that place is still alive. I don't make up these stories. I just receive them. People still send me strange letters. They come from quiet towns, empty roads. Sometimes, from people who aren't alive anymore. I don't appear on camera. Partly because I like the silence. Partly because of things that happened before. I won't say who I am. You can call me Hollow. A name empty enough to hold the things no one dares to speak. And because I don't want to affect anyone's life or business, I won't mention exact names of places. Instead, you'll hear me use the letter X for towns, streets, or homes. I retell everything exactly the way it was sent. No additions. No edits. Today, I'll read a new letter. A story. One that might make you leave the nightlight on. Tonight's story comes from a man named Ethan Rhodes. He wasn't looking for attention. He wasn't trying to be found. He just needed something temporary. A roof over his head. A warm meal. Somewhere to hide from the storm outside. And the one inside his own mind. And he found it. An old, nameless rest stop tucked against the edge of the woods. Right off exit X. The owners were an older couple. They didn't ask questions. They didn't want stories. They told Ethan, if you're willing to keep watch after dark, you can stay. Hot meals. A cot in the back. And no one to bother you. He agreed. Because when you're drifting with only a few bucks in your pocket, you don't ask for much. But some places, they don't welcome sleep. Not from strangers. Not at night. And some beds, once you lie down in them, they carry you farther than dreams ever could. Ethan arrived on a Monday afternoon. The rain had just stopped. And the red dirt beneath his boots was patchy with mud and rotting pine needles. There was no sign. No name for the place. Just a sheet metal roof nailed to an aging frame. 3 scattered dining tables. A dusty vending counter. And a detached restroom sitting near the edge of the woods. It didn't look like a business. It looked like a leftover. Something time had passed over but not quite erased. Frank was the owner. A tall man with wide shoulders and a silence you could feel from across the room. His wife, Martha, was smaller. Gray hair tied back, hands always clutching an old key ring that jingled like ghosts. They didn't ask where Ethan came from. Didn't ask for a name, or ID, or what he was running from. Frank just gave him one long look, then said, "If you're not afraid of the dark, we could use someone to watch the place at night." After the last customer left at 8 p.m., Frank killed the main breaker, rolled the steel shutter halfway down, and pointed Ethan toward the back. "Your bed's in there. Fold it up every morning. Keep the place clean." That was the last thing he said. before starting up his truck and disappearing down the dirt road, leaving Ethan alone. In the dark, with the smell of pine and metal. The room in the back was narrow and musty. The walls were made of old wood panels gone soft with mold. The floor was cold concrete. A fold-out cot sat against one side, its mattress thin, caved in at the middle. A blanket was tossed over it. Frayed edges, colorless. A single bare bulb hung overhead, yellow and weak. Next to it was a metal rack filled with canned food, cooking oil, and 2 dusty rolls of paper towels. The first night passed without incident. Just frogs croaking in the woods, the roof clinking from the wind, and light rain whispering through a crack in the doorframe. Ethan was tired. He passed out as soon as his head touched the pillow. The second night was no different. A trucker pulled in around 9. Bought 2 sodas, then rolled back onto the highway. Quiet. Still. It wasn't until the third night that things began to shift. The rain came back, heavier than before. Ethan curled up on the cot, his phone in hand, playing an old game of Tetris just to pass the time. The soft click of blocks and the low hum of earbuds made the silence feel less empty. But then the phone buzzed. Low battery. The screen dimmed. The sound cut out. And in that moment of stillness, he heard it. Footsteps. Not fast. Not loud. But slow. Heavy. Wet. Slap, squish, slap, squish. Ethan sat up. The light was still on. No one in the room. But the sound came again. From outside. Near the side path that led to the restrooms. He stood. Moved quietly to the side door. Cracked it open. Rain slapped his face. The air was ice cold. Through the golden glow spilling from the room, he saw something that made his heart skip. A figure. Standing about 50 feet away. Just between 2 rows of tall pine trees. Its back was turned. Bent slightly at the waist. Like it was digging in the mud for something. On its shoulders was a backpack. Strapped on backwards. The arm loops crossed over the chest like a harness, hiding part of the torso. Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but stopped. What was he even going to say? He took a cautious step forward. The figure straightened. Still didn't turn around. Then slowly, it walked toward the restroom. Not running. Not hiding. Just walking. Quietly. Ethan stood there until the figure vanished behind the trees. Then closed the door. He told himself it was just a traveler. A trucker maybe. Someone who got lost and wandered into the wrong place. But deep down, he knew something wasn't right. Because he remembered clearly. The front gate had been locked since sundown. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He turned off the light. Pulled the blanket up to his chest. Closed his eyes. But in his mind, the sound returned again and again. Wet. Slow. Footsteps in the rain. Slap, squish, slap. Like a broken record. By morning, he told himself to forget it. No use thinking too much. Maybe the guy had found a way around the gate. Maybe Frank had forgotten to chain it. He didn't mention anything. Not to Frank. Not to Martha. Frank asked, in his usual flat tone. "Sleep okay?" He didn't wait for an answer. Martha handed Ethan a plate of scrambled eggs. Cold. She didn't say a word. That night, the place closed earlier than usual. There hadn't been much traffic all day. The air was thick with fog. Condensation covered the windows. Frank's voice was low. Almost tired. No one's coming tonight. We're heading out. If anything happens, use the radio. He handed Ethan an old flashlight. One of those big plastic ones with loose batteries. And a beam so weak it looked more like a dying candle than a light. Around 9 p.m. Ethan's stomach started to ache. Could have been the eggs. Or the expired cup of instant noodles he found on the supply shelf. He walked out back toward the restrooms. 2 small concrete stalls. One for men, one for women. Separated from the main building, sitting right at the forest's edge. The light above the doors flickered with every gust of wind. One weak LED screwed into warped siding. The cement steps were slick. The metal handle rusted and cold against his palm. He opened the door to the men's room. It creaked. A long, groaning sound. And in the brief glow of his flashlight, Ethan stopped cold. There was someone inside. A man, sitting on the toilet. Facing away. A child clutched tightly in his arms. Neither moved. Neither spoke. But the dim light was enough for Ethan to see the man's hands. Large. Pale. Trembling slightly. Wrapped around the small frame of the child. The kid was mostly hidden. Only a limp arm visible. Head resting on the man's shoulder. Hair matted down against its neck. Ethan froze. Not from fear. From instinct. Like he'd walked in on something too private to witness. He mumbled. Sorry. Then gently closed the door. Turned around. And then he heard it. A whisper. So faint it barely broke the air. It's okay, son. Just a little more. It's still too hot. Ethan stood there. Not sure whether it was curiosity. Or the cold pressing into his spine that held him in place. He didn't look back. Didn't speak. Just walked. Quickly. Back to the room. Back to the cot. When he lay down, his first thought was, there was no smell. No flush. No creak of the door opening again. That restroom only had one exit. And no one used it. He sat up. Turned on the ceiling light. Opened the rear door and looked out. Nothing. Just fog. And a line of trees hiding something he didn't want to see. But there, trailing from the men's room to the concrete pad outside, was a thin stream of water. Real. Reflecting the light. Slipping slowly across the surface. Like something had just walked out of there. And vanished. Ethan told himself not to think about it. Just a traveler, maybe. A father and child stopping through. The restroom wasn't locked. Maybe they came in when he was distracted. Maybe they left when he turned his back. But something inside him, small at first, knew better. The next morning, he checked the stall again. It was empty. Clean. No wrappers. No tracks. Just a single dark stain on the floor. Like something had sat there too long. And soaked into the cement. Frank said nothing. He tossed the keys across the counter, didn't make eye contact. No sleep well, no small talk. Martha didn't speak either. She handed Ethan his dinner. In a foam box. Instead of the plate she usually used. Her hand trembled when she set it down. That night, they closed the shop at 7. The wind had picked up. The window panes trembled softly. Like fingers tapping. Ethan ate fast. Cleaned up. Lay back on the cot in the supply room. He pulled the blanket over his chest. Turned on the desk lamp. Opened his phone and started his usual game of Tetris. It was 9:47 p.m. 15 minutes later, the phone buzzed. Battery low. He sighed, set it down, unplugged the charger, and rolled over onto his left side. That's when he felt it. Something beneath him. Cold. Not air. Touch. At first, it was light. A chill pressing up through the mattress. Then, distinct. A hand. Small. Soft. Cold. Real. It ran the length of his spine. From hip to shoulder. As if tracing his bones beneath the skin. Ethan bolted upright. He threw the blanket off. Dropped to his knees on the cot. Leaned over the edge. And there it was. A child. Crawling fast. Beneath the cot, across the concrete. Its arms and legs scraped the floor, producing a rapid clack, clack, clack against the surface. Its spine arched unnaturally. One shoulder higher than the other. Wet hair dragged along the ground. Saturated and dark. The dim desk lamp cast long shadows. Just enough to see the silhouette disappear behind a metal rack of old canned goods. Gone. Ethan lunged for the overhead switch. The room flooded with light. Nothing. He stepped to where the child had vanished. Dry floor. No water. No footprints. But beneath the cot, 2 small handprints in the dust. Palms up. Positioned exactly as if something had been waiting there. Flat on its back. Looking up at him while he slept. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat at the desk. Blanket around his shoulders. Eyes locked on the back door. Lights on. Until morning. And for the first time since arriving, he started thinking about leaving. But there was nowhere to go. No car. No money. No promise outside that room. Better than the cot and canned soup behind him. And most of all, he knew one thing for certain. The story wasn't over. Ethan didn't remember falling asleep. One minute he was sitting at the desk, arms folded, eyes burning. The next, he was somewhere else. No sound. No wind. No transition. Just there. In the dream, he was sitting in a van. One of those old 15-passenger types. Dusty cloth seats. The kind used for church trips or construction crews. The windows were half down. Sunlight angled through the glass, warm on his face. The hum of the road under the tires. He didn't recognize the people beside him. Strangers. 5 or 6 of them. The van slowed. Turned off the highway. From the front seat, a voice called back. Next stop, 10-minute break. Bathrooms only. Be quick. The vehicle came to a halt. Ethan stayed in his seat, head turned toward the window. Outside was the rest stop. The same one he worked at. But older. More worn down. More forgotten. The roof was rusted through in spots. The siding warped and mismatched. A broken wooden sign, half hanging from a fence post, read, "Food and rest." Then he saw them. A young man. Stepping out of the van. Holding a child in his arms. Small. Curled up. Head resting on the man's shoulder. They didn't wait. Didn't speak. Just walked straight toward the restroom. No one else followed. Ethan didn't move either. He leaned against the window, watching them disappear around the corner. Then, something changed. Smoke. First a thin trail, rising behind the roof. Then more. Then shouting. And then fire. It came fast. Faster than seemed possible. Flames climbed the walls, licked the eaves, roared against the pine trees overhead. People ran from the kitchen, buckets of water in hand, screaming, yelling. Among them, a younger version of Frank. And Martha. She was crying. He was shouting. There's still someone inside. There's a kid. Ethan pressed his face to the glass. His breath fogged the window. And there, in the center of the smoke, stood the man, still holding the child, at the door of the restroom. Not moving. Not calling for help. Just watching. His eyes locked with Ethan's. The child looked too. Wide-eyed. Expressionless. Not afraid. Not angry. Just forgotten. The kind of gaze that doesn't ask for help anymore. The kind that already knows no one's coming. Ethan woke up drenched in sweat. His breath shallow. His heart pounding against his ribs like it was trying to escape. Morning light leaked through the wooden slats in the door. The clock read 6:12 a.m. He sat still for a long time. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Just kept repeating one thought. I was there. I saw them. And I did nothing. That morning, Ethan didn't open the shop. He stayed in the back, sitting on the edge of a wooden chair, nursing a cup of coffee that had gone cold sometime in the night. The room smelled like mildew and ash. Outside, the world moved on like nothing had happened. Until it didn't. He heard the rumble of a car engine. Then tires on gravel. A gray SUV pulled into the lot. The plates weren't local. A woman stepped out. Mid-40s. Hair tied back. A tired face. Not old. Just worn. A man got out beside her. Younger. Could have been a partner. Could have been a driver. He didn't say much. Frank and Martha were already there. Standing in silence. No greetings. No explanations. The woman opened the trunk. She pulled out a bouquet of white chrysanthemums. A framed photo. A young man holding a small child in his arms. And a teddy bear. Old. Its right ear singed. Its fur yellowed with time. No one gave her directions. But she walked straight toward the far edge of the lot. Near the tree line. Near the restrooms. She knelt beside a scorched patch of concrete. Right where the soot still lived in the cracks. She placed the photo on the ground. The flowers beside it. And the bear, last. She didn't cry. Didn't pray out loud. She just whispered. I thought they remembered you. I thought someone lit a candle here every year. But you're still cold, aren't you? Ethan watched from the back door. He hadn't meant to go outside. But his feet moved anyway. He approached slowly. Stopped a few steps away. The woman turned. Their eyes met. She didn't ask who he was. Somehow, she already knew. You've seen them, haven't you? Ethan nodded. The child. And his father. She gave a small, aching smile. 12 years ago. I thought if I left enough flowers, if I prayed hard enough, they'd let go. She glanced at Frank and Martha. They stood still. Didn't speak. Didn't argue. She didn't blame them. But her gaze was enough to make them lower their heads. Ethan said nothing. But deep inside, he finally understood. The dead don't always stay because of anger. Sometimes, they stay because no one ever admitted they were real. No one said a word after that morning. The woman and her companion left slowly, pulling away from the lot like they weren't sure they'd made the right choice in coming. They left everything behind. The photo, the flowers, and the scorched teddy bear. No one touched them. No one moved them. Ethan sat by the door, watching the SUV disappear beyond the pines. And when the sound of the engine finally faded, it was quieter than any night he'd ever spent there. Frank walked in from the lot. He didn't look at Ethan. He was holding a white envelope. "Here," he said. "1 week's pay. Covers food and board too." Ethan didn't reach for it. Frank placed the envelope on the table, slid it forward. "What happened? You don't talk about it to anyone." His voice wasn't angry, wasn't threatening. It was just tired. Martha stood in the doorway, clutching the hem of her apron, eyes rimmed red, but no tears. Ethan looked at them. Not with hate, not with blame, just understanding. They weren't bad people. They were just people who had lived too long next to a death no one had ever claimed. And when you live in the dark long enough, you learn to close your eyes and keep breathing. Frank pulled a cigarette from his pocket. His hands shook lighting it. "We tried, you know. Called preachers. 3 years in a row. Each time, they refused to come." Ethan nodded. "They didn't leave because no one told their story." That made Frank pause. Just for a second. Then he nodded back. Not a casual nod. Not polite. A real one. Like, for the first time, he truly saw Ethan. Ethan left that afternoon. Didn't wait for sunset. Didn't want one more night on that cot. He slung his backpack over his shoulder, picked up the teddy bear from the pavement, and started walking toward the highway. The first ride he caught was from a food truck heading south. The driver didn't ask where he was going. He just said, "You look like someone who just saw a ghost." Ethan replied, "No. I saw someone who used to be human. And no one remembers him." He didn't look back. Didn't take pictures. Didn't drop a pin. Didn't mark the place. As if staying silent long enough would make the whole thing fade like morning fog. But things like that, they don't disappear. They just wait for someone new. Someone tired enough not to ask questions. Someone lonely enough to believe the voice whispering at 3 a.m. might be real. Ethan never told the full story. Not to doctors. Not to friends. Not online. Just once. He mailed a letter. No name. No return address. It read, "If you're running from something, and you find a rest stop with no name, where the owners ask no questions, don't take the keys. Don't sleep after midnight. And if you hear small footsteps beneath your bed, don't breathe. Don't move. They only want to know if you still remember them. I just received them. Some arrive by email. Some by hand. Some left on my doorstep at dawn. A few, I'm not sure, were sent by anyone still living. I don't reveal real names. I don't give locations. Because I believe some truths shouldn't be hunted. Call me hollow. An empty name. To hold what no one else will say. And if you've ever walked into a place that made your skin crawl for no reason. If you've ever heard someone whisper your name in the dark, and no one else was there, write to me. I'll listen. And you won't be the only one carrying that fear anymore.